Alrighty.
All right, and I have to admit, Jeremy, I and my internet are running a little bit slow today. I hate
Oh
to
my gosh.
blame daylight savings, but I've kind of been feeling it this year.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I ran a speed test a couple times this morning because my internet was going a little haywire.
Yeah, well, here we are now. So excited to have you in the group. We are live. And I posted a little bit about your story. And I think actually a lot of folks in here may have stumbled upon you in a podcast, EO Fire, some masterminds we've done together. But go ahead, do you want to sort of introduce us and maybe even give us a short synopsis of how you got to be this podcast expert and all over media?
Oh gosh, I feel like that's a loaded question every time somebody asks me about that. Because I was talking to somebody about this yesterday. That I feel like our life stories, we try to make like this linear thing, and just life is not that way, right? Like it doesn't work that way.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah. Can I ask a specific question then?
Go for it.
So I've heard in a couple of your interviews that you were a teacher at one point, and there's a lot of people in this group that are connected to education and service. So how does being a teacher relate to now being a brand specialist and online marketer?
Totally. So I feel it's interesting because I feel like everything I do, I end up teaching in some way, shape, or form again. I was a personal trainer for 8 years. I was a high school teacher for 2. And in every type of business, my first business venture was network marketing. Everything I did, I ended up teaching and falling into that teaching role. And it's funny because now even in media, I've ended up teaching people through my podcasts, and we've added some digital services and things like that now where I'm even teaching people implementation. So it's really interesting that everything I do, I end up teaching. Like the career doesn't change. I just guess how I put it out there changes.
Yeah, I can relate to a lot of what you're saying. And that also goes to emphasize the fact that this media pace, like the what that you're doing right now, is really important at this moment in time, right? So at one point, maybe it was health and fitness. At another point, it was high school. So why are you focusing now on specifically teaching media and, I mean, what I call influencer marketing?
Because I think, well, here's the interesting thing about it is my wife and I totally started on like different ends of the spectrum. She's been in PR for like almost 10 years at this point in time. Oh. And then I had kind of been on, the education side of things and been a podcast listener for years and years and years. And then we had this melding of what we do, and we work together now. So for me, it was kind of realizing I had a podcast for quite a while, and it did well, and I got high-level guests, but 2017 was kind of like a breakout year for me, and that big difference was what I was doing with media, how I was getting media, how I was positioning myself, and promoting in a big different way. So I'm trying to help other people apply a lot of those same things I learned, because I'll tell you what, like I'm no special knowledge. I didn't go to school for this. I didn't have a lot of that experience. I learned it by doing it, and I don't want people to make the same mistakes I did. So I've kind of figured out how to, I guess, circumvent a lot of that stuff and make the way of getting media shorter, because it creates more speaking opportunities, creates more ability to make income, and it can really change what you're doing if you use it correctly. And that's the whole thing of using media correctly.
Yeah. And another reason why I love it is because you have the ability to reach so many more people. Like when you're teaching, the most effective way is mostly in a pretty intimate place, or more like my coaching, be one-on-one. But when you have this big mission, media allows you to reach more people and like leverage your time and energy.
Absolutely.
So I'm curious, what are the mistakes that you see people doing? Because I have a feeling folks in this group are just starting to appreciate the PR world that you're talking about.
Well, it's funny because I think people want to start too big, and it's like, it's good to think big, because I know every time I'm at a mastermind or something like that, people are like telling their plans, and I'm like, I want to conquer the world. And then I always feel like a jerk because I'm like, I think big. But the thing is you have to realize that there's a set of stairs there, right? There is no elevator. It doesn't exist. And I find that's where a lot of people mess up is you need to find out who cares in your local community about it. So for me, I found a weekly newspaper that gets mailed to everybody's house in my county, and that's where I started. I sent them every press release about everything I was doing, and it helped me to develop a portfolio. Because what happens is you start with the first level of press to build up to the next level of press to build up to the next level of press. And that's kind of how it works. It's like stairs, right? Like you start local, you go to regional, you do all these different things. And then going from there, is how you can get a lot of these bigger things. So I think people make the mistake of they want the Forbes, they want the Inc., they want a lot of this stuff, but they haven't built anything to get there. And they may be awesome at what they do, and they may be the expert, but nobody knows it yet. So you have to figure out how to tell people that. So the biggest mistake I see is people not starting local enough and small enough, and then promoting the heck out of it. If you find like a local paper that'll run something that you've done and take a picture of that and post it on social media rather than a link, it goes crazy because people see that physical newspaper and they're like, oh my gosh, you're in the actual paper? How did that happen? Anything I've posted that had to do with a physical newspaper versus, an online publication has been huge. And that's something you got to think about, like what's attainable for you in the area you're in.
I love that. I love the local newspaper. That's something I don't think many people are talking about. A lot of folks will say, yeah, start a meetup in your community, take pictures of you leading book clubs or something. Right. But what you're saying is like have someone local do that PR for you. I mean, publish it because
Because here's the thing, like that's a great idea to say take a picture at meetups and stuff like that, but it's still like just you posting it to social media. What you're actually doing is getting a third-party source to then talk about you. But here's the best part. A lot of those like, local dailies or even like, I know like we have a paper that gets, like I said, gets sent in the mail to everybody in the county once a week on a Thursday. They'll print and run your press releases. So then even you can control what they're actually talking about. So think about that. That's really important. So then not only are you saying what you want to say, but you're getting somebody else to quote unquote say it. So it looks even better. Like if you look at, my media page, jeremyryanslate.com/media, you'll see on the far right column, I have a lot of the press that I have listed. If you go closer to the bottom, most of that stuff is all press releases that I started with. And that's the thing you really have to think about, getting a local paper or a regional paper or somebody like that to run it.
Press releases. It's such a hidden gem, and it helps with SEO. So if you happen to have a blog or a website that they can, use your keywords, that is really powerful. So I love that.
Too. Go ahead.
No, please.
I was going to say is everybody's so worried about like finding a hack and like, running a Facebook ad to get press or doing all this different stuff that they forget about the basic, which is just write a press release. It's old school.
Yeah. What tools or techniques do you recommend for it? Because it is old school, and I don't think many people are familiar with like the formatting and the how-to. So do you have a place that you send people to learn that skill?
It's funny. What I've actually given people is a lot of my first articles I've written and said, kind of take a look at this release and kind of write something similar. Because what you want to do with a release is it's like a Quentin Tarantino movie. You're going to tell it backwards, and you're going to talk about what actually happened backwards in the story, and it can't be promotional. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it can't feel promotional because they won't run it. It has to feel factual. It has to feel like it's just reporting what happened. So that's really, I don't really have a place I send people other than saying, hey, take a look at what I wrote, write something similar. I'll take a look at what you did. We'll reposition it. We'll make it sound better. But that's what you really have to think about is tell the story backwards, focus on numbers and figures and things like that because it matters. Like when I first got started, 50,000 downloads is not a lot of downloads, but to my local newspaper that had no idea, it sounded awesome. So we ran that right in the title, and that actually got picked up in a regional here in New Jersey called the Bergen Record. And then a TV producer here in New Jersey was reading the paper and was like, ooh, I want to interview that guy. And that's how I got on TV.
Awesome. Yes, that's so exciting. And that's another cool thing about making it like putting it in someone else's hands. Like we do so much now, like we're so focused on optimizing Facebook ads and having the right call to action. It's like put your facts out there and let, the old school journalists pick it up. So can we get a link? Will you like maybe comment a place that we can connect with you or look at the examples you just mentioned? So I think a lot of people will want to read about your first ones for sure.
How do I do that here since I'm on like the back end of this? Do I have to go to the page?
We can do it even after the interview. We'll comment on the page to make sure folks get that.
I'll just link people to my media page because I just find like just taking a look at that, you'll see I use the same format every time. It's just basically I tell the story backwards and follow my own words.
So I want to go a little deeper here with you. And this is something I'm working on in my own business. And you said, make it a big deal. Even if 50,000 downloads or a little Facebook group or, a little workshop isn't really that big of a deal to you. how do you find like the confidence and the energy to go like make yourself a big deal?
Fake it till you make it, first of all. I feel like everybody says that, but it's have all your basics in. What that means is when you have your website, like take your website and make it look professional. Like it doesn't have to be crazy, but find somebody on Fiverr that's going to make you good graphics, because having that primary look good is really important. Also have a speaker one sheet. That's a sheet that has your image on it, has your speaking topics, has like any logos of places you've been featured, your contact information, things like that. And then also that media page. Those are the things that really, really matter, because you want to make it easy for media to find you. And also when they check you out, you want to look legit. Because I know I've heard Lewis Howes talk about it before when I heard him speak last year at Keith Yackey's Amplify event, where he was saying one of the first big magazine features he got, he was only making like $1,500 a month at that point in time. But he spent so much time really making his website look good when they landed on it. They did the top 5 guys in online marketing, and they were Seth Godin, Tim Ferriss, Gary Vaynerchuk, somebody else, I forget who, and him. And he's like, and I'm also the tallest guy, so they stick him in the middle, and he looks more important. So there you go. It doesn't matter what you are at that point. It matters what the perception is. And that's really what it's all about. You have to create that perception. One of my favorite things to do when I got started is I went on a website called Thumbtack, and you can actually get people to do different services pretty cheap. It's how we got a lot of our wedding stuff paid for, like on the cheap.
Awesome.
But we got a photographer on there for, I think it was like $90 to do a whole bunch of pro photos, crop them out, Photoshop them, do everything else, and they look great. Let's say you don't have that budget for $90. A lot of universities, if you have one local, their photography students have to do a certain amount of photos to graduate. So find somebody there to do it for you.
I love these tips because it really is about the perception. And you guys, we are bombarded with, look at me, let me put a cute picture of me talking, or here's my live video, or here's my own blog. We are bombarded with that, especially in the worlds that we're working in. So if you can set yourself apart with a professional photo or someone else talking about you, that puts you like leaps and bounds in front of other folks that are just trying to call themselves a speaker or start a podcast or be a big deal. Right. And I think that's a good way, that's not even really faking it until you make it. You really can look at the things that you've already done. So let's say people in here are a school teacher. Well, you've talked in front of hundreds of kids, write that down, use the facts and just put it out there. Kind of like you said at the PR.
Here's an easy way to do it. Do a fundraiser for your class and then send it to the local paper and then run that as an article. You know what I mean? There's always something you can do. My wife was a finalist here for something called the Rose of Tralee. It's like the Miss America for Ireland. So she was this close to getting sent to Ireland. But every time we did one of the events for this contest, because I was the male version of that. They call them escorts, which I don't know about that. It sounds weird. Anyway, every time we did something with that, we wrote it up and sent it to the paper, and it got published. So it was it was local residents representing Irish heritage and things like that. But it's a newspaper article.
Yeah, that's huge. I see people on this watching live right now that have tons of things that they're already doing that they can be just sharing with more audiences in a factual way. And then I just want to circle back. You mentioned the speaker page and that sort of thing. So, and I just want to say that even if you don't have a website yet, you can just make a simple landing page. And I think we might have talked about this before, but there's some BS statistic that if you put your face next to a celebrity or an influencer or someone that has a platform, you're 3 times more credible in other people's eyes. So I think there needs to be, in this personal branding world, we need to focus more on collaborations. Because the win-win is just so obvious. And so the more that we can stop worrying about what do we look like, what did we say, but what can we have other people say? How can we help them?
Well, and from a branding standpoint, let's take a look at this. That's why I think everybody should have a podcast or a YouTube show or someplace where you can interview people that are influencers in your space, because the thing you were talking about is something we call positioning, right? When you're seen with an influencer, your own credibility rises, and the more influencers you interview, the better you look. You didn't do anything different. You just did an interview. And one of the interesting things I like to tell people is, the best place to find those people to interview if you're new, go on Amazon and look for books, because there's people, if they wrote a book and they're maybe not that well known, first of all, they seem credible. They're an author. Number two, they're probably a shameless self-promoter because they need to promote that book. So that's a great place to start.
Ooh, I love that. Are you guys taking notes? I actually am. This is so juicy today. And so I think a lot of what we're talking about is like basic nuts and bolts, like get yourself out there, start your platform. So I really want to get into your bread and butter of what do we say? You know, like when we start these podcasts or we land these interviews, like, is there like a magic formula? I'm setting you up here because I know you have like a strategy to help people really make the most of the interviews or the media that they do land. So talk us through your tips.
Yeah, well, and here's the thing is I'll say, if you're on the interviewer side, you always want to keep it focused on the audience and keep it value for them. So whenever you're interviewing somebody, if you're doing the content driven way, like think of it as what does my audience want to learn from this person, and try and just, pull that out of them. So that's just that side of it. I wanted to say that first and foremost. The other way is if you're getting interviewed, there's three major components to this. The first being story. You have a personal story, you have something powerful, you have something emotional that people can grab onto. And it's so important because it humanizes you. And in any interview, you have very little time to actually grab somebody's attention. And that's where you're really going to do it, is in that emotional section. And every interview is going to be set up differently. But here's the thing. They're all going to have these three major components just in very different ways. Like when I was on EO Fire, like John expects me to tell that my own and just kind of go. And, it's really stressful. But when I'm in a conversation with somebody, like usually like, tell us your story, tell us where you came from. They'll give you an opportunity for that. Yeah. And then the next thing is message. Message is the one thing you want to teach that whether somebody buys from you or not, they're going to walk away feeling like, wow, that Hanna, I got to work with Hanna. She's awesome because she taught me this and I can go apply it. Mm-hmm. You don't want to focus on too many things, like something that they can learn and walk away with. You really want to be able to focus on that. The third thing is call to action. What do you want them to do? Like, because if you just, leave it with great story, great message, and then bye everybody, follow me on social media, it's not going to go anywhere. Call to action. Like, where do you want people to go? What do you want people to do? And that's what you really, really need to think about. So I usually tell them it's something that's going to help them apply what you just taught them. So for me, when I talk about podcast guesting, it's a checklist to being a great podcast guest. It's going to help them apply that. And that's really what I want to help people do, is basically, okay, I just talked about this and here you go, you can do it.
Yeah. So clear, you guys. I think it's pretty common to most conversations, like you said, right? Like being a real person, having a story, giving some value, and then making a clear connection to like how you can keep moving forward. Yeah, that's great. So how, lost my train of thought, but I wanted to come back to what you were saying about how the interviewer needs to make sure the audience is engaged. So I'm just going to let you know, anyone watching live or catching the replay, if you have questions or things that you want Jeremy to address, he is super involved, and I'm sure he can answer questions for you. So tell us about, you're really put together. You have your own podcast. Things are going well. Tell us about, you are hitting your fitness goals. Tell us, and you've probably been asked this in other places, but I think it's really important for us to learn from the times that it wasn't so easy and high vibing. So tell us about, like, specifically in the putting yourself into media strategy that you messed up and what you learned from that failure or disappointment.
So I've been on TV a few times, but the very first time, I don't know if you've ever been to a modern television studio, but it's really weird. It's like literally you and the interviewer, and everything's automated. Everything's run by there's nobody actually in the studio with you. Everything's in a booth, like, a mile down the road or whatever. So it's really weird. So I'm usually very, able to speak well. I'm very in control of my language. I was an English major, so go figure. So it's like I'm sitting there talking to the woman, and she's talking about like what I went to school for, and I couldn't think of the word that I had basically what I concentrated in. Like I studied world religions, but I had a concentration in Judaism, but I couldn't think of that. So I'm like, and the clip was so bad. It seemed like 3 minutes. It was literally like 3 seconds, but it seemed like 3 minutes. And I was just like, And I could see my wife just like in the background, just like terrified. So like you just gotta kind of roll with it, because it's like you can't tell them to stop it. You know what I mean? Or otherwise you're gonna lose it. So you just kind of gotta laugh it off a little bit. So luckily she jumped in and gave me the word, and I was like, ha, that's exactly what I meant. Of course, yeah, let's keep going. So you just gotta kind of roll with it. You're gonna be nervous. It's gonna happen. You know, the more you do it, you know, the number of times over equals certainty. So that's what you have to look at. You know.
Yeah, I hear this on so many podcasts that I listen to, because I think it is common of like public speaking or media that like the first few times are going to be bad.
Yeah.
And you need to get them out of the way. And the sooner that you can go have the or the, you know, really flop of an interview, the sooner that you can get, like you said, to the certainty and to becoming an expert. So I think that it's so important to hear those moments and to know that you still survived and you're still allowed on TV and you're doing just fine.
Yeah, they let me come back. It was crazy.
Yeah, Jennifer says, done is better than perfect. And
that's my major life motto, Jennifer. So thank you so much for saying that. My wife is always perfect is better than perfect. And I'm always just, let's do it. Let's just get it done. Let's figure it out later. I don't care if there's misspellings. Let's just get the email out, whatever it may be.
Yeah. Yeah. I always am like, you know, part of my brand is that I'm a real person. So if I make a mistake, that means anyone can do this. Like, exactly. I'm no like perfect person. Come on. You can do this too. So you mentioned 2017 was a breakout year for you, getting more clear on how to use media. What is 2018 looking like? What are the big things that you're working on right now?
Well, I'm trying to do a lot more speaking, which is big. I've already gotten 3 speaking gigs hooked up this year, which I didn't have to reach out for. I got because I got media. The other thing is I'm trying to get more television appearances, because I feel like no matter what, TV just really, really helps with that like appearance of credibility. You know what I mean? Like it really helps you to look even more credible. So for me, that's really what I'm trying to do. So Peter Shankman actually put together a really great program on how to get to be the expert in your space and, you know, use that to get on TV. So we're actually following that step-by-step program, which after this interview, I'll link up in here. I was trying to find it while I was talking to you. Yeah. I'll link up in here for your audience to check out, because you know, Peter Shankman's the guy that started Haro, Help a Reporter Out. So he totally knows what he's doing. He's been on TV more than most people. So for me, it's about more speaking and, you know, more television appearances this year, so I can sell more of my digital type products. Like as our agency, we have done for you services, but now I'm focusing a lot more on teaching.
Yes, because like you said, and a lot of folks in this group now have like an understanding of what they want to do, their offer, their course, their coaching, but like how do you get people to line up for you and just be interested and not be hustling and chasing people while you establish yourself on platforms that have respect and are like giving value to people? And exactly. I saw in one of you actually sent an email about, you know, how much podcasts are growing. And there's a lot to be said for people who are like tuning into a TV show or listening to a 30, 40-minute interview or showing up to an event as opposed to scrolling through Facebook.
Are you talking about the big long one I did? I made into a blog post with had like the pricing for radio and stuff? Yes.
And just like the power of media outside of Facebook in 2018.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, totally. That's my bread and butter. So I think it's really interesting because my wife used to do media for a doctor here. Oh, Hector, what's up, man?
Yeah.
A doctor here in Jersey that's one of the top 1% podiatrists in the country. She did all his PR. And a show here in New York for like a Saturday radio show, which is when like, you know, nobody except like maybe your grandparents are like listening and they're not going to buy anything. It's like $5,000 to $6,000 for a 30-minute interview on the radio. And it was like, number one, that's an audience that's probably not going to buy anything unless they're really suffering. Number two, what's that engagement like, you know, at that point in time? Like on a Saturday, like who really says, oh my gosh, I can't wait to listen to that health show on the Saturday afternoon. Like nobody waits for that. Toilet. Right, exactly. It's very passive listening, right? It's very passive. Yeah. You do it because you don't really have an option. With a podcast, like people are making that decision of, I want to subscribe, I want to download. And Wired Magazine recently did a study about this, and they found that longer episodes are doing better, which is why for the last year, I went from a half an hour to 45 minutes and my stats went up. But engagement, because Apple released their beta stats platform, is incredible. Like people are sticking around for the entire thing and they're not fast forwarding through commercials or anything. So your time is much better spent on a podcast. They may be smaller audiences, but they're actually listening.
They're your ideal listeners.
And they're
not
actually
grandma
listening.
And Hanna cleaning the toilet and Joe Schmo down the street and everyone else. Yeah, I love that. And let's see. Oh my God, I listen to the radio on the weekends instead of having the TV on. Yeah. So podcasts are so powerful, and you guys, it's kind of like easier than ever because so many people are looking to do this influencer marketing. And so just yesterday, I'll give a personal example. I had been following a woman who does personal branding for like years and years. And finally, I just replied to her email. And I was like, hey, I think we might live in the same area now. I've been following you for a while. We got coffee yesterday, and like she's going to be coming into the group. We're going to do some work together. It's like, again, like reiterating that if you can find a way to help others, like if you're an avid listener or you think you have value to add, like it's like, how dare you not go share that or ask, can I come talk to you and your people?
Absolutely, because there's so many ways that you can add value to people that you don't even realize. You know what I mean? That's what I did for on my own show. I had people that approached me that were like starting a podcast and like, I want your help. And I'm like, well, I don't want to quite just, mentor you without some sort of exchange there. So I brought some of them on as interns, and they helped me for quite a while, and they really helped the show, and they learned how to podcast. They launched their shows, and it was great. So that you always have some sort of value to offer, whatever that may be.
Totally. And I just want to reiterate, as much as I love this Facebook group, and I think it's a really great place to connect, there are 1,300 people in this group, and none of them have come up to me after a Facebook post and been like, I need to work with you. When I show up at live events, people line up to say, like, what do you do? How do I learn more about you? Or like, how can we work together? So just remembering that making yourself present on Facebook is great, but to really like get people lining up with ease, you need to find new platforms. So I'm so grateful, Jeremy, that you're helping us figure out how to do that, especially with the PR, the local newspaper, and starting to diversify the platforms that we show up on. So, like final advice or words of wisdom you have for us today?
Is to get started now, look like a professional, and you need to really tell everybody what you're doing because nobody's going to come around and ask you. You have to tell.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So how do we stay connected with you? I know you mentioned some links you're going to drop for us, but where's the best way to find more of you?
Yeah, well, let me ask you. Typically, the thing I give out to help people, like based on what I just taught, is that checklist. But I put together something special while I was talking to you here, so I hope my eyes weren't wandering too much. I put together a free module of my course, the Ultimate Guide to Getting Interviewed on Top-Rated Podcasts, because you had mentioned like, speaker one sheets and things like that. So in that module, there's actually a free speaker one sheet template. There is a free media page template, and access to our Facebook mastermind. So if that's cool, that would be something I'd love to.
Cool.
Yeah, that'd be something I'd love to give to your peeps. So that's commandyourbrand.media /free. Commandyourbrand.media/free, and that'll get them a free module about how you should look and present yourself, and a speaker one page template, which works in Google Docs. It's great, and a media page template, and our Facebook mastermind.
Go, guys. Go, go, go. And for those of you that are still with us, yes, Christina says, wow, thank you. That's so generous. Jeremy is a real person, and he has a podcast. So make sure that you stay connected with him, even, after you check out his free resources. Because like I said, I really believe, and I'm, supporting this group to transition 2018 into new platforms and really use influencer marketing. And this is a great tool for them to start with. So thank you so much. What is your podcast? What's the name that we can search for?
Yeah. My podcast is called Create Your Own Life, and that's over at jeremyryanslate.com. If they want a direct link to the show, jeremyryanslate.com/iTunes will get you right into the show and subscribe to the feed.
Awesome. Well, we have so many links and ways to stay connected with you. Oh, Jennifer Lee is helping us with that. Thank you so much. I know we will see more of you soon. So have a great rest of your day.
Which, by the way, Hannah, I have an interview with Seth Godin coming out in 2 weeks. Very excited for that.
Huge. He's been on your vision board for like how long?
Like 3 years.
Yeah. I remember hearing that. And yeah, I saw you like tagging, like, anybody have a connection? Anybody. Super exciting. I will definitely look out for that. We can share it in the group when it's out. All right. Thanks, everyone. Go command your brand and be seen. People love Seth Godin. Jennifer's OMG, what?